Welcome to Combat Empire, your home for the biggest stories, wildest moments, and most intense breakdowns in UFC, MMA, and boxing. If you enjoy fight news, predictions, drama, and breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe and help the channel keep growing. Every single subscribe helps us bring you even bigger combat sports content every week. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video, because things are about to get violent inside the fight world.
Savannah.
3, 2, 1, face off.
Easy.
Face forward, please, guys. Perfect.
Thanks, boys. Good. Thank you, guys. All right, good. We're moving.
When he have good opponents, he just lose. That's it. When he have Shavkat, if he talk too much, just look at your fight. That guy beat you 4 rounds. That's it.
Earlier today, Ian said that he beat Shavkat for 24 minutes. Was it right? Yeah. Oh, Carlos, excuse me.
He just Carlos.
Yeah, sorry.
He can beat Carlos, but he can beat everyone. But I'm not same like that, guys. I'm different.
Do you agree with? I saw your manager say this. Do you agree that Ian is going to run from you throughout the fight?
Sure, he have same style or every fight. He just run back and he just working for the point. I don't remember when he finished.
3 days. That is all that remains before Islam Makhachev and Ian Machado Gary finally settle one of the most closely watched matchups surrounding UFC 330. And with the fight this close, the conversation has completely changed. This is no longer about what might happen months from now. The hardest training sessions are essentially complete, the game plans have been built, and every final prediction, interview, and reaction carries more weight. Now, there is one central question. Can Ian Machado Gary create the kind of fight that forces Islam Makhachev away from his preferred rhythm, or will Islam impose his style before Gary ever gets the opportunity to establish his own? That is exactly why these final days have generated so much discussion throughout the combat sports world. Analysts have pointed out that this matchup is extremely difficult to evaluate through one simple strength or weakness. There are too many layers involved: distance, timing, wrestling, clinch exchanges, defensive reactions, cardio, composure, and the ability to make adjustments under pressure could all become decisive. And that is where the final reactions surrounding this fight become particularly interesting. Islam Makhachev enters UFC 330 with the reputation of a fighter who wants everything to happen on his terms. His greatest advantage isn't simply one individual technique. It is his ability to seamlessly connect every phase of MMA.
I think he's good person, good guy, but he act like he's like bad boy, something like this. But I tell in the interview also, we will make him humble, we will make him good guy.
Islam can threaten with his striking, force an opponent to react, close the distance, establish the clinch, attack takedowns, and then immediately begin making them work once the fight reaches the ground. There is rarely a moment to relax. Defending one attack often creates the opening for another, and that continuous pressure is exactly what has made Makhachev such a difficult puzzle throughout his championship run. But Ian Garry isn't stepping into UFC 330 simply hoping to survive. He is coming to prove why he believes Ian Machado Gary belongs among the very best fighters in the world.
If I go out there and I scalp him in 2 minutes, do you want to see me fight him again straight away? Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it is. If we have a back and forth war like he had with Volkanovski, then it probably would warrant a rematch. But also, there's many other challenges here that are exciting at the same time. So let's get through Saturday night. Let's get the win, and then we'll see in what fashion I get the victory and if there's a rematch on the cards. But I wouldn't be against it. I think he's earned enough to do it. But let's get through Saturday.
Gary openly respects Islam's elite level, but that respect hasn't changed his prediction. He believes he can defeat Makhachev and do it in a way previous challengers could not. Ian warns Islam that he has spent years developing his takedown defense, learning how to shut down wrestlers and destroy their momentum before they can establish control. He understands what Islam wants. The question is whether understanding it will actually be enough to stop it. Gary insists that it will. He believes he possesses the tools to deal with everything Makhachev brings, while creating an entirely different kind of fight from the one Islam normally controls. And Gary has added even more controversy by making a bold comparison between their respective competition. According to Ian, the opponents he has already faced, including Shavkat Rakhmonov, Bilal Muhammad, Carlos Prates, and Michael Page, presented greater threats than the competition Makhachev has encountered. That is an enormous claim. Islam has shared the octagon with elite names including Dustin Poirier and Alexander Volkanovski, but Gary believes his own path has forced him to solve more difficult stylistic problems. In Ian's mind, those experiences haven't simply prepared him for UFC 330. They have hardened him for exactly this moment. He believes facing different styles.
He's the two best guys in welterweight division, and I think it's a tough fight. But again, we're talking about Islam Makhachev. He's getting a little bit older now, but he's still in his prime. Seen multiple guys say how strong he is. Once he gets older, guys, they don't seem to be able to escape. I can't think at any point that Islam is going to lose. Islam.
Physical dimensions and high-level threats has given him the experience necessary to remain composed when Islam begins applying pressure. And Gary's overall strategy sounds straightforward. Defeat Islam Makhachev by any means necessary. But underneath that simple statement is a highly calculated approach. Ian says every second matters. His objective is to make the correct decisions, inflict damage whenever opportunities appear, and never allow Islam enough time to settle comfortably into his preferred rhythm. That doesn't mean taking unnecessary risks, quite the opposite. Gary wants efficiency. He wants to maintain distance, make Islam work for every e-entry, punish mistakes, and gradually break the champion down without exposing himself unnecessarily. For Ian, there is only one objective that matters when everything is finished: having his hand raised. Dustin Poirier.
There's a lot to talk about for every aspect of this fight. Now, the striking, Ian Garry, what are the obvious things? Very tall, the tallest opponent that Islam has ever faced to date.
Yeah.
Habib and Islam also said that he's very hard to hit because he moves a lot. You know, he tends to run, and Islam said the only thing in camp that I really haven't enjoyed is having to chase fighters down, because we're preparing specifically for Ian and how much he uses the cage and kind of disengages and only really re-engages on his own terms.
Right.
But Islam's also a great striker in his own right. I think because his grappling's so good, he doesn't get a lot of credit for being a really good striker, and he actually is a very good striker. So let's start there. You know, it's going to be open stance, mostly left-handed for Islam, going to be fighting out of southpaw. Ian fights orthodox, so we're going to have an open stance likely for the majority of the fight, which I know you love to break those down.
Yes.
So what are you seeing on the striking in this one?
Yeah, this is really interesting. Ian Garry is obviously a great striker, and that's how he's been able to win most of his fights and get to a title shot. But Islam Makhachev's striking is actually slept on, and it's largely because he comes from Dagestan, and everybody knows Khabib was the guy who set the precedent, and they have great grappling from there. But the Dagestani strikers or fighters are becoming really high-level strikers. Just look at Usman or Magomedov.
More knockouts than any other method of victory.
Exactly. So I am actually loving how Islam's striking is coming along. His kicks are great. He's got really good discipline with his jab hand. So whenever he does throw a combo or closes distance to try to land some strikes, when he exits, he's really good about putting a jab in your face just to sort of keep you at bay. It usually doesn't land, but it's really good to get something out there and in the line of fire from what Ian Garry
However, believes Gary's previous performances need to be examined very carefully before anyone can confidently predict that strategy will work. Poirier says he wants to go back and study Ian's fights against strong wrestlers, particularly focusing on his takedown defense and cage work. He wants to see what happens when Garry is trapped against the fence. How effectively does Ian fight for position? How quickly can he separate? And most importantly, how efficiently can he return to his feet after being taken down? Because Poirier already recognizes the terrifying problem waiting for Gary. Islam Makhachev's grappling can completely drown opponents once he begins establishing control. Stopping the first takedown is one challenge. Stopping the second and third attempts while Islam continues chaining attacks together is something completely different. And even if Gary does eventually return to his feet, he may have already spent enormous amounts of energy doing so. That makes Ian's defensive wrestling potentially one of the biggest factors in the entire fight. Another analyst identified an equally dangerous tactical problem. Gary may be forced to abandon a significant portion of his usual kicking arsenal against Makhachev. Against many opponents, Ian's kicks help him control range and disrupt forward movement. Against Islam, however, every kick potentially creates an opportunity to catch the leg, close the distance, and immediately transition into a takedown. That could force Gary to rely much more heavily on his hands. The jab, straight punches, lateral movement, and disciplined long-range striking may become his safest weapons for keeping Islam away. but even that strategy creates another problem. Gary frequently fights while moving backward. That movement can help him maintain distance, but constantly retreating can also reduce the power behind his punches and allow Islam to steadily take control of the cage. If Ian continues giving ground without making Makhachev respect what is coming back at him, Islam may eventually eliminate the space Gary needs. And once Gary's back approaches the fence, everything changes. The striking battle can suddenly become a clinch. The clinch can become a takedown. And one takedown can become exactly the kind of prolonged grappling exchange Ian has spent his entire training camp preparing to avoid. With only 3 days remaining, that may be one of the biggest tactical questions still hanging over UFC 330. Can Ian Machado Gary control the distance without constantly surrendering ground? Or will Islam Makhachev
fight believing Ian Garry is going to beat Islam? Because it's starting to feel that way. Just a little more and a little more. Charles Oliveira, just to throw a name at you, a guy that knows everybody, has the right to an opinion. He said Ian Garry is going to win. That's interesting. Ian Garry is a stand-up fighter from Ireland who idolizes Conor McGregor. So now we know everything we need to know about Ian Garry. He's a sharpshooter. He's going to use his hands. He's going to use his kicks. He can't do any jiu-jitsu. But then somewhere along the way, he started training with Damian Maia. And it was an interesting coincidence because he ended up on bottom against MVP with his back taken, but was never in trouble. So then we're going to go, okay, great. You had problems grappling with this guy, MVP, who's not a grappler. You got real big problems now because you're going to fight Rakhmonov, who's going to expose everything that you don't know. And it turned out that punching and kicking Irish kid had spent some time in the wrestling room, right? I mean, he just looked better than we knew that he was. Enters the 5-round club, deals with it. And one thing that he had to deal with that night, Ian Garry has never fought where he was not bolstered up and he was the guy. Ian Garry's never done a ring walk where the audience knew this guy's overwhelmed. He's done that to other guys, but he's not been in that position. How does a guy do? Guys act one way when they're the favorite, but they seldomly act the same way as an underdog, and vice versa. Some guys will do their best work as underdog. Some guys actually get drawn down when you got an audience saying, I don't know, this could be a hard one. That seeps into them. But it didn't seep into Garry.
Slowly close the cage around him until there is nowhere left to move. And one analyst goes even further, making a surprising call by giving Islam Makhachev the striking advantage over Ian Machado Gary. On pure striking technique, many fans might immediately favor Gary. But the analyst argues that MMA striking changes completely when one fighter carries a constant takedown threat. Islam can potentially strike with far more freedom, because Gary must always be thinking about what happens if he overcommits. Every combination Ian throws, every kick he launches, and every aggressive step forward could create an opening for Islam to change levels and attack the legs. That hesitation could become extremely important. The analyst believes Islam's boxing, leg attacks, timing, and relentless forward pressure could gradually force Gary backward toward the cage. And surprisingly, he believes Makhachev may actually outstrike Ian during portions of the fight before eventually transitioning into his wrestling. That possibility makes Islam especially dangerous. Gary isn't preparing for a fighter who only wants takedowns. He is preparing for someone who can use the threat of wrestling to make his striking significantly more effective. Another prominent analyst is also strongly backing Makhachev, arguing that the champion simply possesses more paths to victory. Islam can win through control. He can hunt submissions. He can pressure Gary against the fence. And if Ian becomes overly concerned about defending the takedown, Islam can capitalize on those reactions with his striking. Even if the fight reaches the championship rounds, the analyst doesn't believe that necessarily favors Gary. Over 25 minutes, constantly defending takedowns, fighting grips, escaping positions, and carrying Islam's weight could become exhausting. The prediction is that Makhachev eventually overwhelms Gary and secures his first welterweight finish, most likely somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round. And that prediction is shared by another analyst who gives Islam the advantage virtually across the board: striking, grappling, experience, and the overall intangibles that become especially important in championship fights. The argument isn't that Gary has no weapons. Clearly, he does. The problem is that Ian may need to execute his game plan almost perfectly, while Islam has several different ways to recover if one part of his strategy isn't working. If the takedowns aren't immediately available, Makhachev can strike. If Gary begins finding success at range, Islam can increase the wrestling pressure. And if the fight reaches the ground, Makhachev enters the area where he is expected to hold his greatest advantage. For that reason, the prediction is once again Islam by submission in the 3rd or 4th round, after gradually breaking Garry down and reducing his ability to escape. Tom Aspinall also weighed in with an extremely strong endorsement of the champion. Aspinall acknowledges that Makhachev is getting older, but he still believes Islam is operating firmly within his competitive prime. And although he expects both men to face difficult moments, Aspinall simply struggles to imagine a realistic scenario where Garry defeats him. Makhachev is getting a bit older now, but he's still in his prime. It'll be a tough fight for both fighters, but I can't imagine a scenario where Islam loses. Coming from an elite heavyweight champion, that is significant praise. Aspinall isn't dismissing Garry as an opponent. He recognizes Ian's danger, physical dimensions, and technical ability. He simply believes Makhachev remains too complete to dethrone right now. Arman Tsarukyan offered Islam another major compliment by making his pound-for-pound position perfectly clear. Tsarukyan believes Makhachev belongs at number 1. That assessment carries additional weight considering Arman understands Islam's abilities firsthand and operates among the elite himself. The UFC is filled with dangerous champions and contenders, but in Tsarukyan's view, Islam remains the fighter everyone else is chasing. And that brings us back to what makes UFC 330 so fascinating. Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry isn't simply wrestling against striking. It is a battle between two completely different approaches to controlling a fight. Garry believes his takedown, defense, movement, range, and experience against elite competition can expose weaknesses in Islam that previous challengers failed to exploit. He wants space. He wants Islam chasing him. And he wants to punish every failed entry until the champion begins questioning whether another takedown attempt is worth the risk. But Islam wants exactly the opposite. He wants to remove that space, force Garry backward, make him defend repeatedly, and gradually turn a technical striking contest into a physically exhausting fight. And several analysts believe the threat of that wrestling may actually allow Islam to win exchanges on the feet as well. That is the nightmare Garry needs to solve. Dustin Poirier questions whether Ian can survive the relentless wrestling and cage pressure once Makhachev establishes contact. Tom Aspinall cannot envision Islam losing. Other analysts are predicting a 3rd or 4th round stoppage after Garry's defensive resistance begins to disappear. The majority of predictions clearly favor Makhachev, but Ian Garry doesn't care about the majority. He believes he has spent years developing exactly the skills necessary to defeat this type of champion. And if Garry can defend the early takedowns, maintain distance, preserve his cardio, and force Islam into prolonged striking exchanges, those predictions could suddenly become irrelevant. But if Islam closes the distance consistently and begins controlling Ian against the cage and on the ground, Garry could quickly discover why so many elite fighters have failed to solve the same problem. 3 days remain, the training camps are finished, the predictions have been made, and soon, confidence, interviews, and expert analysis will mean absolutely nothing. Islam Makhachev will have the opportunity to prove once again why so many consider him the best fighter in the world. Ian Machado Garry will have the opportunity to shock the MMA world and capture the biggest victory of his career. So who are you picking at UFC 330? Does Islam Makhachev dominate once again and continue ruling the welterweight division, or can Ian Machado Garry finally become the fighter who solves the puzzle? Drop your prediction in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more UFC 330 predictions, reactions, fight breakdowns, and the latest MMA updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.